Well, with the money this made, you can say that this killed it at the box office. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. It's Halloween, which means it's time we have to talk about a release from earlier this month I have yet to review, Halloween Kills. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it or if you are planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie related content like reviews and rankings on a near daily basis. But let's jump right into it and let's talk about Halloween Kills. This finds Michael Myers escaping from Laurie Strode's trap to continue his ritual bloodbath. Injured and taken to the hospital, Laurie fights through the pain as she inspires residents of Haddonfield, Illinois to rise up against Myers. Taking matters into their own hands, the Strode women and other survivors form a vigilante mob to hunt down Michael and end his reign of terror once and for all. David Gordon Green returns to direct this one as well as co-write with Danny McBride, and it's the sequel to Halloween 2018, a film that I had a great time with, and I say that as someone who isn't a longtime fan of the Halloween series. I love the first one. I've yet to get around to the now irrelevant sequels, and I only saw the first Rob Zombie film, which was okay, but other than those films, that was it. But I enjoyed Halloween 2018. I liked a lot of its callbacks to the original, and I also liked its sprinkling of dark humor all throughout, with McBride and Green giving it their personal flair. It was a great way of staying true to the spirit of Carpenter's movie while also finding a new way forward. So I was really looking forward to both this as well as Halloween Ends. Now, while I'm still looking forward to Ends, I will admit my enthusiasm has been curbed a bit slightly, as this is a bit of a letdown compared to 2018. Now, I don't hate this movie, or even dislike this movie. Now, I know a lot of people are calling it one of the worst Halloween entries, but I actually think it's kind of fun for what it is, though it does have its problems. Now, I will say this does deliver on what it promises us. It's Michael Myers going on a rampage against pretty much the entire town of Haddonfield. While the kill count in 2018 was pretty high, this might just blow that out of the water in terms of numbers. Just about every time Michael shows up, it ends in carnage. And for those who just go to see these movies and want to see Michael Myers go to town for 90 minutes, I think they'll be satisfied with this, as it delivers on that notion alone. Now, I will say that there might be times the film can be a bit too vicious. Like, while most of these sequences are extremely creative, there are a few lingering shots where it's essentially Michael dragging the moment out, and we're forced to sit there and watch it all play out. Like, I'm trying to avoid saying anything too graphic, but I will say there's one scene in particular early on where Michael kills someone, and he just keeps going on with this one body even though the deed is done. And most of the time we'll just see the aftermath of these moments after Michael kills someone, like they're laid out in these poses or in a park, or he'll recreate a picture that he sees. But there's just this one sequence where it goes on for what feels like an eternity after someone's already dead, and it feels like at times that Green was trying to be a bit gratuitous just for the sake of it, especially given the context of some of these scenes. Like, it's one thing if this was something happening to a villain, and it's one thing if we get these ridiculous kill sequences and slashers that are meant to be quick and over the top. I mean, I've seen my fair share of slashers with a bunch of these creative kill sequences, and I've enjoyed them for that alone. But I do feel like sequences where we're forced to see someone innocent get tortured in an extended sequence, especially characters introduced just for that sequence alone where they get killed off right away, I just feel these add absolutely nothing to the movie. I know not every single sequence was like that here, and as I said, for the most part it was done well, but there's just at least one scene early on that came close to crossing the line, if it didn't flat out do so, and it just made me feel really uneasy. But what I did like was that this changed the dynamic a bit by sidelining Laurie Strode for much of the movie. This finds her recovering from her injuries at the end of the last film, and now that she's older, she's stuck in the hospital for pretty much all of this film, as she can't recover as quickly as she once did. We see her at one point try to get out of bed to help out, and she is active for just a little bit, only to be taken out of commission quickly after. Now, I wouldn't call it a totally thankless role, as there's a storyline where it's believed by her daughter Karen, played again by Judy Greer, that Michael is on his way to the hospital to get her specifically, and Jamie Lee Curtis does what she can with the material she's given, going more for a scene-chewing performance, which we'll get to more in a second. But rather than it being just another story where it's simply her versus Michael, the focus here is split between Michael, Karen, as well as Anthony Michael Hall as a now grown up Tommy Doyle, leading a mob of essentially everyone in Haddonfield against Michael. This part of the film is where I'm mixed. While we do get some decent character moments, mainly when we see Tommy speaking at an open mic night at a bar at the beginning, this is where the movie's full of the most contrivances. There's a sequence that's actually kind of heartbreaking, where it's revealed that when Michael escaped the institution in the previous film, there was another patient who escaped, and he gets mistaken early on for Michael, and the mob goes after him at one point in the movie. Now, while I get what they were going for here, this storyline felt unnecessary, and it didn't add as much as I would have liked for it to add. Mainly because it's hard to buy that so many people would make this same mistake, as this other patient is built completely different from Michael. Plus, it's worth noting that everyone has seen Michael's face now, considering he was placed in the institution without his mask and it was all over the news. Yet they try to hide behind this reasoning that Michael wears a mask all the time, so there's no way they could really know for sure that that's him they're truly after. They just assume since they see this guy in a particular outfit and go by nothing else. So I'm not gonna lie, it is a bit ludicrous. While I like this idea that Michael has gotten to the minds of the townspeople so badly that he turned them all into monsters, this stretches the suspension of disbelief way too much in order to pull that off. So it doesn't have as hard of an impact as it could have, especially since the way this part's structured, it feels so shoehorned in. While they do attempt to give us a character we can feel for, especially when he crosses paths with Karen, who does feel bad for him, it isn't revisited often enough to feel like it's a storyline that truly has an impact. It feels like a distraction. And I can see some people calling this film as a whole a distraction. It doesn't have a satisfying conclusion. It's meant to be a bridge movie. It was filmed back to back with Halloween Ends, and I'm sure once you do see this back to back with Halloween Ends, it won't feel so bad, but yeah, I can see how on its own it feels frustrating. And the main area where I feel people will be most frustrated with this is the acting and the dialogue, because not gonna lie, folks, this one is rough. Earlier, I described Jamie Lee Curtis's performance as scene chewing, and I'd say that's probably what most actors were going for here. And it really just doesn't work for the most part. Now, to be clear, this cast is full of a lot of normally reliable actors, and I know this isn't completely their fault as they're just working with what they're given. But this gets cringy at times. A lot of it comes off as very melodramatic, like something out of a Lifetime movie, and they're all spewing some of the most cliche-sounding dialogue. And it comes in place of the comedy from 2018, which is considerably toned down this time. Now, there are still some comedic moments thrown in there, and they do work, particularly from two characters known as Big John and Little John, whom I enjoyed. But for the most part, there's a lot less humor here, and instead we get these really terrible lines that barely pass his first draft. The one line that especially gets repeated a number of times throughout this is "Evil dies tonight." And this isn't something repeated a lot in just one scene. Like, this is heard all throughout the movie. Like, anytime it circles back to the mob, this is all we hear, and it gets extremely annoying very quickly. I understand that the idea is the town's motivated and they've had enough. I just wish they didn't keep coming back to the same line I don't know how many times all throughout this just to solidify the point. Especially because it would be said in between all these other lines that constantly sounded like a motivational speech that just come off as hokey. There were a few times I cringed a bit. Now, on that note, I will say that while this was a pretty big issue I had with the film, I still ultimately enjoyed the movie overall. Normally, yes, something like cringy dialogue or bad acting can really tank an entire movie for me. It's happened plenty of times before. There have been times one thing will just get on my nerves and that's it. But I think what helped me here was I viewed it in a way that was probably not intended by the filmmakers, but it was still a way that made its faults somewhat forgivable because of just how creative and over the top the movie felt when we saw Michael on a rampage, which itself took up a large portion of the film. There was already this heightened state to the film overall that established a specific tone. So when we do get these moments of just everyone else in Haddonfield and it was all these really cheesy and melodramatic lines coming right after a brutal Michael Myers kill, and it was all being chanted at the top of everyone's lungs, I viewed it similarly to the way another horror movie from last month, Malignant, was viewed, or kind of in the way that we view cheesy monster movies. I saw it as very campy in a way. Now, unlike Malignant, which we know purposely channeled a lot of that energy very intentionally, I don't think this was David Gordon Green's intention to give us necessarily a campy Halloween movie first and foremost. I know I haven't seen too many Halloween movies, but I know that's not necessarily what they were known for. But there were times this movie felt so melodramatic that it would feel ridiculous, from the line reading to the plot developments. And I know this isn't how everyone felt, but because they were coming off other moments that were intentionally ridiculous, like the over-the-top kill sequences, I was able to put up with a few of them. They were bad, and they were the main reason why I felt let down with this compared to 2018, but not so bad to the point it brought the entire movie down. So I will give it that. Now, one last thing I will say that this does keep consistent with 2018 is that I do like its callbacks to the original Halloween, and this time it's in the form of an extended flashback sequence that presents us unseen events from that film from the point of view of Will Patton's deputy character as a young man. This takes up the first 20 minutes or so, and we then revisit it briefly a few times throughout this. I gotta say, these are by far the best sequences of the film. The main reason being, I loved how it tries to match up to visually look exactly like it was unseen footage from Carpenter's movie. The lighting, the production design, the grainy feel to it, it was all recreated masterfully. And it wasn't just a gimmick. I felt there was substance to these moments, especially tying to how Patton's character feels in the present day. They were filled with nicely built up tension that really hooked you in. Plus, there was a twinge of that same humor from the 2018 film, along with Carpenter's score blaring in the background. Now, I do wish that the rest of the film was as rock solid as these sequences, but they show how, despite the film's issues, they do show that Green and the crew were at least coming to this with the best of intentions and still tried honoring the original's legacy. Halloween Kills isn't great, and it's definitely a step down from 2018. But at the same time, I do actually like it. While it does have a lot of poorly written dialogue, and the acting could have been better, and there were a few gaps in logic, it does deliver on its promise of Michael Myers going on a rampage, which I know is sometimes just what people want when checking out these films. And in those moments, it's very creative, and it establishes a heightened tone that the film runs with, for better or worse. While the fact it's a bridge movie does limit it to a degree, I had fun with it for what it was, and I know at least it came from a good place. I know I'm probably going to get crap for this, but Halloween Kills gets a 7 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Halloween Kills, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like this one at all? Are you looking forward to Halloween Ends? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone, and keep having fun with film.